Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Nikhil Gupta, co-founder and CEO of ArmorCode and founding member of the Purple Book community, a community for software security leaders by the software security leaders. Mithun, Rajoor, he's global head of application and infrastructure security, S&P Global. And we also have Nick Salian, managing director and group chief information security officer of Cantor Fitzgerald. They join me to discuss why software security is an important topic for the board. Thanks to digital transformation, every company is a software company. Software is not only a great operational tool, but it is actually a source of competitive advantage, but also an entry point for adversaries to attack an enterprise and critical services. Gentlemen, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. And Nikhil and Mithun, I'll start with you first. Why is software security so important?
That's a very great question, and thanks for first of all having us here. As you mentioned, every company is a software company, and especially after the pandemic and all, digital transformation happened. And so the good news here is everything is going to work remotely and digitally, but at the same time, bad guys can hack from anywhere else in the world. And for most companies, brand is very important. And as a result, what happens here is back in the days, like if you go 10 years ago or so, everything was under the data center and things were behind the firewall. But now everything being access to the internet, it's all application. So now if any breach happens, the world wants to make sure and the board wants to make sure that your software is secure or not. So that's why it's a very important.
And Mithun?
Sure, that's a great question, and thanks, Jill. One comment what I wanted to add was today everything what we see is pretty much transformed into code. There's obviously the legacy stack that we have where infrastructure is behind firewalls and security controls, but right now what the world has transitioned into cloud, and within the cloud ecosystem what we are trying to do is we are shipping out software, and that software is something the users have been using for their abilities in different shapes or form. Now the question why the board is interested in software security is because they should be concerned if the software is packaged and shipped to the users, they should be concerned about the privacy concerns, the security implications, and whatnot. And people and the bad actors could go against it. So it's very important that security investment needs to be in the software security space, and that's why the board of directors needs to be concerned.
And Nick and Mithun, I'll also ask you to follow up on this one as well. Nick, can you share examples of how companies and industries are getting transformed by software?
I mean, look at companies like Amazon. Look at Blockbuster Videos that was way back there, and now it's Netflix. So you have so many examples of different companies which have transformed via software. Software is no more like a single developer sitting and trying to automate things, but it's an asset. So.
And Mithun, how is it transforming software?
For me, transformation, I'll try to keep it simple. Take an example of how we used to pay bills in the past. We used to go to the PSE&G company, stand in line, pay the bills, but now it's everything in mobile. The same applies to any transaction, whether it's e-commerce or anything. It's so digitally transformed, and it's in pockets of mobile where people can just log in using their mobile and do whatever day-to-day work they are doing. So that's a significant transformation for software.
And Nikhil, let's talk about going back to the board for a moment here. Many of your customers are Fortune 500 companies. Why do you think the board should care about software security?
So I think so, as I mentioned earlier, in general, it used to be cybersecurity, and one of the big component of the cybersecurity is now software security. There's a brand which is there. So apart from what is the main core reason why somebody is hacking? So somebody is hacking because of financial gains, and then the second thing is the brand. And there are a lot of nation state attacks where you have other nations from different trying to bringing a bad kind of this thing to the companies or to the nations and all. So as a result, it's very important from the board to make sure that the brand is protected, and in order to do that, they have to look at what is the key assets. And as Mithun mentioned earlier, that software is a big asset today, and so when you have a key assets like software, you want to make sure it's all protected. So that's one of the main reasons that board should actually have a separate initiative, if you will. Last year or the year before, President Biden had this executive order talking about the same thing. So there has been a lot of push from the government and all those various bodies, and as a result, it has escalated into board.
And Mithun, you work for a global financial services
Yes.
company. What's your take on it?
So the global financial companies such as us, we are answerable to our regulators and our customers. So for us, software security is significant importance. We need to protect customer data. We need to protect the brand. We also need to protect the software that we are trying to sell to our customers. So it's got multiple implications, and our software is at millions of user base, and when such a large volume of user base is using our software, the prime importance is security.
And Nick, CISOs and security leaders, they think in technical terms and the board thinks in financial terms. How should CISOs and security leaders present to the board when you're talking about security solutions?
We need to do a good job in terms of turning that language into plain English. So what I'm instilling in my team is that when you draw like KPIs and KRIs and you show some statistics of vulnerability reports and this and that, like you need to be very clear and convert that into real life languages. So what we do is when we go to the board, we talk about threats that will impact the business. Specifically, like we have tons of trading software, right? So if software is not secure, it may impact the broker when they start their day. Tick to trade wouldn't happen, then you're into problems. So what's important is to translate that technical language into business language and make it very clear to the board of directors that why software security is important.
Right. And Nikhil, how are you advising security leaders to communicate this effectively to the board?
I think so. That's a very good question, and as Nick mentioned, so what you have to do is you have to do two things. One is the maturity model. What is the maturity level? But again, at the board level, they really don't care. It's an abstract term. Like board is looking at the overall governance, just not the software. But as Nick mentioned, if you can quantify that my tier 1 application is generating $1 billion of revenue, and if the software is breached and you're going to have an impact of 30 seconds, like in high frequency trading world and all that could be billions and trillions of dollars of transactions. So then it really starts to kick in, and board seems to understand that what's happening is because from their perspective, board's number one thing here is to keep the financial thing. Like at the end of the day, I have my fiduciary responsibility to make sure the stock is good, right? And if you are losing billions or millions of dollars, then then it's impact to your stock, and that's where the board is more worried about that.
And Mithun, explain to us this concept of shift left. Why is governance so important?
Sure. Whenever a software is deployed to production, I think what's important is people try to rush on functionalities, features, and the commitments what you have for your stakeholders. Shift left is a terminology, but I encourage people to do start left. You got to start left with security mindset. And if you're running in an agile shop and you're having thousands of developers, it's the developers who need to implement security practices and not the central cybersecurity team. So, shift left is important because we have legacy as a technology that we already have in systems in production, and we are trying to clean the technology debt and moving towards the left so that we can start fresh with security and compliance. So that's why it's important.
And Nick, Cantor Fitzgerald, speed is everything. You guys are traders. How do you explain to the board and to senior management that governance and guardrails, we need that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in this journey, governance is very important. You need to have a complete 360-degree view of what's happening around. I honestly have several regions around the world, and when I get up in the morning, like I look at my phone and the most
look at your phone.
Like, oh no.
And the most important aspect is like, hey, what's going on? And I want the visibility and the data that companies or vendors can provide me, so I can go to the board of directors, I can go to my managers, my senior management, and talk to them about instantly. So I'm looking at like solutions out there that can help me to bring issues to life.
And Nikhil, I'm going to wrap it up with you. Tell us more about Appsepcon and how people can register for it.
Yeah, so Appsepcon, basically it's the world's leading digital application security conference. As we are talking with the leaders over here, it's very important to have a broader awareness. And so as a result, we we are a part of a community called the Purple Book community, and as part of the Purple Book community, we have created this conference called Appsecon 2023, which is going to be end of this month. I encourage, we have like around 30 or 40 security leaders from across the globe who are going to be there. It's a 2 days online conference. You can get free CPE credits. It's digital and it's free. One thing which we believe in Purple Book community is that the security education should be free and everybody should be able to get it. So we have, both Nick as well as, Mithun are going to be speaker there as well. And, it's very difficult to explain this software security in just 10-15 minutes over here. So I'll encourage people to go to the Purple Book community website and look for Appsecon 2023. And I'm sure we are going to have a link over here. Please register for Appsecon 2023 and get this word out and spread the education about software security.
We appreciate the insight, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.